So Elite Trials is an event now which we see a couple times a month, and alongside the leaderboard competitiveness of it, which I'm not sure many people care about at this point, there's the rewards you get from it, which are very good for an event like this, to be honest. You get the more stages you kill as an alliance, but then the thing you mostly have control over is your own damage here, and it progressively ramps up with the amount of troll tokens specifically that you get. The more troll tokens you get, the more you can spend in the shop. And there's some very good stuff you can get in here that I'll go over later. So, first of all, it's a very simple event. It's just alliance trials, but scaled up. So ideally we want to use every commander as a counter each day, which means spearmen into cavalry, cavalry into infantry, infantry into spearmen, and bowmen into bowmen. In normal combat, bowmen don't counter anything, but in Alliance Trials and Elite Trials style combat, they counter themselves. So first of all, to maximize your damage, you want to get the best buffs you can possibly get from the special stage boxes. These. You want to first of all prioritize the allied commander buffs. That's because they affect all 4 troop types instead of just one. So here I have 25% crit for all commanders, and then 25% crit for just infantry. So in effect, this is basically 100% crit chance, because it's 25% for infantry, cavalry, spearmen, and bowmen. So you'll get so much more value out of these buffs than you will for the troop-specific ones. So you want to go for crit chance and attack first of all. They're the best, and then strategy, prowess, and might recovery are sort of in a bracket of their own. They're kind of difficult to evaluate how strong they are. Prowess is the guard damage the commander brings with it, and then strategy is how effective their active is, and might recovery is obviously getting their active off a bit more in combat. You will have to prioritize rarities at some point with these buffs, like a grey allied commander buff will obviously not be better than something like this, a legendary crit chance, especially if it's strategy, might recovery, or prowess. But you'll have to make your own decisions with that. But allied commander buffs, crit chance, attack are best and the highest rarities you can get. And then there's the formations themselves. This will change throughout the event, because early on you can actually send commanders in much smaller groups, because there's a few things you want to manage. I mean, first of all, you have the sequencing system. So generally, commanders will be hit in this sequence, so it'll be first to be hit, second to be hit, third to be hit, fourth to be hit, fifth to be hit, sixth to be hit. That will change if you have different ranges of commanders, but that is the general rule of it. But that means this spot specifically, your commander will have the shortest engagement time, which will be the same for these two spots as well, because they're closest to the enemy, which means they'll start attacking earlier, and therefore start getting damage off earlier, but then also generating might earlier, and that can indirectly lead to them getting one more rotation of their active ability off in the fight, which will lead to big spikes in damage. But if they're in this central position as well, they'll actually be taking damage, and that also generates might. And if you put a high value active commander there, and you maximize the amount of might generation they're getting to create more and more castings of it, that can really boost up your damage. So if you put something like Tyrion here, with other commanders that will gain attack, and then the attack stats they'll get will then benefit from the counter bonus into the spearmen, and that will really increase your damage. Early on you can actually send commanders one by one just to maximize that might regeneration, because something like Arya in the first page or two won't actually die. But the general rule is you want to send in groups of 3. Mostly this can apply throughout the whole thing, until maybe like the 8th, 7th stages where stuff starts hitting really hard. So early on you can just put the high value like buffers and high value active commanders in that front position. But here we're at like 7-6 at the time of recording. You want to do 1 tank and then 2 DPS around it. I mean, here I have 7 commanders, so I'll have to send either 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 1, or 1 group of 4 and 1 group of 3. So I'm just going to do this with 1 tank, and then Tyrion as the buffer with the 2 DPS. And then everyone should stay alive. Yep, easy enough. And then I'll do the same again with Chris as the tank. Number 2 DPS around them. Stays alive even in these later stages. That's the best way to maximize your damage. So we have them all in the front row. We have the tank soaking up the damage, keeping everyone else alive so they can do all the damage themselves. There's actually a hidden interaction in this event too after 7-10. Basically any stages you hit after in the 8 stages will actually do triple damage. So if your alliance gets to that point and you manage to get hits off with counters at that point, you can really boost up your damage and get to those later damage reward stages if you couldn't otherwise manage it. After that, we've maximized our damage as best as possible. We'll go to the store to spend our stuff. So this will depend what is best on your account and what your priorities are at the time, but generally I think friendship chests are the best value. 10 for just 1,000 is very good. If you're a PvPer, you want to be getting the 75% army increase every single time. It's the only consistent way to get this through free-to-play means. You can get it through like UC rewards and stuff like that, but that's not accessible to everyone. These Dragon Skill tokens are very good even if you're just using them for XP to level your skills. This would be the equivalent of 25k diamonds if you're buying it from the Dragon Store directly, like this. So that's pretty good value when you put it in perspective like that. Dragon Skill XP and raffle tokens are quite difficult to get actually. So any way to get them on the cheap is something you should probably go for. Then after that I think it's a bit more subjective. Obviously if you don't have Tyrion gold you want to be farming up his medals, but even if you do have him gold, to be honest, Tyrion should be an epic general token commander, which means if you preemptively farm up his medals, when Tyrion gets awakened you should be able to convert all those excess medals into epic tokens and then awaken what you want. So I think it's a pretty good idea to start preemptively stacking his medals up, to be honest. Then after that, obviously, especially if you're like an AC rusher and you want to stack these up, they're not that cost efficient I think, but 75% is always good. This troop appearance is pretty terrible to be honest, but it does have some benefits to it. Like to green, that siege attack reduction is pretty decent if you're getting hit a bit. And then the hospital capacity at purple, like both those stats for a 0 castle for example, is decent. And then for rally leads or whales, the legendary effects are obviously very good, just rally buffs. The training speed ups are nice, but it's only 2 days, it's not going to make all that much difference. And then if you have excess after all of that, you can buy your grain for emergency healing, having a stock of items and whatnot. But that's all there is to it really. It's a very simple event. There are a few tricks you can use to maximize your damage though. It's all about having that fine balancing act of maximizing might recovery on the right commanders whilst keeping everything alive.